Hello again, Year 5, it's Mrs. Lawrence, and today we are looking at fractions, decimals and percentages. So in the top left-hand corner you will see there's some key vocabulary. So before you start this video, I would just have a look at that and make sure that you're familiar with those words. Hopefully none of those are new to you, but just check to make sure that you understand those before you start this video. Okay, so let's start by reminding ourselves what fractions, decimals and percentages are. So if we start with fractions, fractions show a division and they are made up with two digits, one on top, which is the numerator, and one on the bottom, which is the denominator. So for example, in the fraction here, we have 1/4, which is 1 divided by 4, 1 divided into 4 equal parts. Our decimals are a number and we have our place value columns. We have our units column, then we have our decimal points. We have our first decimal place, which is the tenths column, the second decimal place, which is the hundredths column, and the third decimal place, which is the thousandths column. So for example, in my number here, I've got the digits 3, 5, 6, and 7 to make the number 3.567. which is 3 units, 5 tenths, 6 hundredths, and 7 thousandths. And if I think about that as fractions, I've got 3 whole ones, add 5 tenths, which is the red digit here in the tenths column, 6 hundredths, 6 out of 100, which is the 6 in the hundredths column, and 7 thousandths, which is our 7 in the thousandths column. And again, as decimals here, it's 3, add 0.5, 5 in the tenths column, 0.06 because 6 is in the hundredths column, and 0.07, with that 7 being in the third decimal place in the thousandths column. And they all equal 3.567. And finally we have percentages, which is out of 100 or parts per 100, and we use our percentage sign here, so we have 65% here, or 65 out of 100. One of the biggest things in maths that's going to help you is if you can try to recall some of these fractions, decimals and percentages equivalences. So it's really worth your time having a look at these and trying to remember as many as you can. Hopefully none of these are new to you. We've looked at these all throughout Year 5. But if you take the time to try and remember that 1/2 equals 0.5, which is 50%, and do the same for each of those fractions there, it will really, really help you with everything in maths. Just like with our times tables, the more that you can practice these and try to remember them, the better. So I'm going to cover up some of these decimals and percentages here. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and see if you can remember each of these fractions as a decimal and as a percentage. So when these are covered up, pause the video and have a go at writing down each of these fractions as a decimal and a percentage and see how many you can remember. So hopefully you've had time to practice those and have a check to see how many you got right. Don't worry if you didn't get them all right. There's a lot to remember. So the more that you can practice, the better. And hopefully they will help you with all of your fractions, decimals and percentages work, particularly as we go into Year 6. Now we're going to think about converting from percentages to decimals. I would really recommend recapping the percentage video from 2 weeks ago, which you can find on the YouTube channel, on the Year 5 and 6 playlist. If you want to have a bit of a recap of what percentages are first, that will help you with what's about to come, if you need it. So if you've watched that video, you'll be happy that we can say 45% is 45 out of 100, which we can write as our fraction here. Now I want to think about how I can convert that to a decimal. So I'm thinking about my place value columns, my units, my tenths column, and my hundredths column. Notice I've not got my thousandths column here because my fraction is only out of 100, so my decimal is only going to be to the second decimal place, to the hundredths column. So I can remember that 100 out of 100 is 100%, which is the whole thing, it's 1. So if I only have 45%, that's less than 100%. So my decimal is going to be less than 1. So I already know that my units column is going to be 0. It's going to be less than 1. I just need to work out what goes in the tenths column and what goes in the hundredths column. So if I think about 45 hundredths, I can rewrite that as 40 hundredths add 5 hundredths. Adding that 40 hundredths and that 5 hundredths together would give me 45 hundredths. I can simplify this red fraction here, 40 out of 100, by dividing the numerator and the denominator by 10, which would give us 4 tenths. And that makes that really easy to think about what goes in my tenths column, because if I remember 1 tenth is 0.1, so 4 tenths is going to be 0.4, it's going to be a 4 in that tenths column. And my 5 hundredths, I can remember 1 hundredth is 0.01, so 5 hundredths is going to be 0.05 and a 5 in my hundredths column. So that's why it's really important that you practice those equivalencies as much as you can from the first slide, because here is an example of where it can really help you with your work. So 45% as a decimal is going to be 0.45. Now I'd like you to have a go at converting the following percentages into decimals using the same method that we've just done. So hopefully you will start to see a pattern as you go through. But I would like you to use that same method by writing it firstly as a fraction out of 100, then breaking it down, and then finally finding out what your decimal is going to be. So I'd like you to pause the video now and have a go at those 5 percentages there, have a go at writing those as a decimal using that method that we've just done. The answers are going to appear in a moment, so please take the time to pause the video now and then I can display the answers. So here are your answers, and like we said, hopefully you were able to begin to spot a pattern. The digits in your decimal are the same as the digits in your percentages here, but hopefully you took the time to work it out with our method to prove why that is the case. Notice on 60% as well, we have 0.6. We don't need that 0 in the hundredths column because there is nothing in that column, so our decimal is just 0.6. So I hope that video has helped remind you about what fractions, decimals and percentages are, and hopefully will help you with your maths work this week. If you need any more help, feel free to email myself or Miss Pugh, and we'll always be happy to help you and give you some extra support. Thank you. Bye-bye.